I think it's amazing that I found this too. I mean, I grew up playing board games. I actually did some of the Dungeons and Dragons pen and paper, and
Mhm.
then I got into computer games, and I was like, oh, that's it. You know, console games and computer games forever. And now as I get a little bit older, I'll go back now. Like, there's been games that have been on PC, and I'm like, that's a board game too, and you actually go and you play the board game, and it's not like you feel left out. It's not like you're missing something. You know, it's just as fun, especially if you have a group of people that appreciate it and understand how to play some of these games. Because some of these games you got to have the right people for it to be played correctly. I remember playing like the Conan game and things like that, and it was I think 3 years removed from when I was playing the MMO that came out that didn't do so well. So it's really interesting to run across these board games, and there's so many people that love PC games, love console games, but they have their board game nights, and it's really a great to see that and see these people come out with such great games.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because they even like what's really cool is they even added in a way for like if you're playing through a scenario or whatever, like you can actually save the state that the game's in. So it has you record down what's happening, and then you can sit there uh, and record how far you've gotten, and then you can stop playing it and pick it up later. But it's a really interesting like what they've done with that game. Because that's the big thing that like I've heard, like it's really difficult to create a board game because of how many moving parts there are. And I've even seen like schools that teach game development and all that for video games, that there's like, if you really want to be like have a general grasp and really become a special, like a really good developer, do a board game first. If you can knock a board game out of the park, you'll have no problem creating games, like video games.
Something I'm curious about, and I'm sure you can answer this. I remember when I was first introduced, I guess, back into these type of board games. I'm talking about somewhere it could be 50, 60, $70 because you're getting great figurines. It's really an expansive game. But let's say someone is thinking, hey, I want to get into this. What is it like? Let's say you just walked in the store. Let's say you didn't go online and you started asking people. You just walked into like your local store and you see all these games. The covers looks great. How do you think someone would go about like picking out their starter game to like get into the world? Is it based on maybe something that they liked, like either a TV show or a video game or something like that?
Well, so the big thing is that, like you say, you walk into these like local game stores, and it's just shelves and shelves and shelves of games. The thing about it is I like, my advice is, if you're looking to get into the hobby, definitely go to a friendly local game store. Do not go to like a Barnes and Noble or something like that, where they do have games, but you're gonna be lost. Um, because what they will do is, people that work at friendly local game stores are gamers themselves. They've probably played a ton of the games, and they're going to know exactly what to suggest. Reason being is, they're going to sit there and be like, what type of games have you played before? What type of like games do you like, let's say? And then at that, they can kind of like get a feeling of what you may or may not like. Now, there's a bunch of games that are out there that are going to be like the introductory games that people will play. I mean, off the top of my hand, like off the top of my head, if I sit there and I think about it, like Ticket to Ride's a big starter one. You have Alhambra's a really good one of good Euro to start with. Stone Age is another one that's a good worker placement game. And the thing about it is like, it is trial and error. You have to sit there and play stuff. It's kind of like, you didn't know if you were going to like Risk or not until you sat down and played it the first time, But the problem is that I kind of tend to tell people that they're kind of new to this is, don't go out and buy games right away, because you're going to end up like, it's not cheap to buy a lot of these Euro games. And then if you find something that you don't like, it may drive you away from the hobby. And I mean, I've seen it on Craigslist here in Boston, like people buying these like really heavy games, as their first game, and they're like, we didn't understand it or we didn't like it. Like, of course, if you went from playing Monopoly to a game like Arkham Horror, which I've seen a couple of, it's like you're not going to have a good experience. Like, yes, it's an Ameritrash game, as they call it, but you're not going to have a good experience. There's a lot of moving parts in that game. So it's a thing where I like definitely go to a friendly local game store. They will guide you in the right way. And I tend to find that you will have people that will get into the hobby and just fall in love with it. Like if you're a gamer, you're going to like the board gaming just as much as you do video games. And the other big thing I tell people is if you're still not sure, like you don't want to go to a friendly local game store right away, if your town or there's a game cafe, a board game cafe nearby, go and hang out there, because a lot of those things, they'll have a pretty good collection, and you can kind of get hang out there for a couple of hours. You can get a good feel of what there is out there, and you can start to say, okay, I really like these games. And what's cool is they'll have not only those intro games, but they'll have a little bit more advanced games. And then that way, going to one of those friendly local game stores, they'll be like, what do you like? And you're like, well, I played a little bit of this, and then I really started to like this game. And they'll be like, cool, I know what I can suggest to you.
And that's a great point, because I remember, going back to Magic the Gathering, when I started playing it, I started searching locally here in Miami to see if there were groups that were playing it. And I found, wow, they have one here, they have one here, they have one here. And you go there and, yes, it's all geeks and nerds, but you fit in. No one's attacking you if you don't know the game. Like, I was still a noob. I could play against someone who was like nice to me. But these guys were playing tournament. They're doing drafts. But still, when they weren't in the game, like you can't bother them while they're playing. But when they were just, in between or playing casual games, they'll teach you, they'll show you, they'll help you build a deck, they'll give you information. And the same thing with board games. Like even if you don't have a lot of friends that are into board games, you can still go to some of these places and they'll be nice. You'll make friends. And like you said, they'll teach you about maybe what games that you might want to get into before you have to spend actual cash yourself.
Yeah, and that's the thing that's really funny, that like I went, there's a really great board gaming cafe here in Boston called Night Moves, which has 2 locations now, which is great. Like I got to know the owner like early on when he first really opened the place. Really nice guy. And it was funny because they got this game that I had been interested in. And it was funny because it was like a heavier Euro game. And I sat down and started playing it, and now the name escapes me. Oh, I gotta look it up. But it was so funny because we're sitting there playing the game. I had no clue what the hell was going on. But they were teaching me at the same time that they were playing this game. But like what really made it interesting was just like going through and learning like the different little Terra Mystica, that's the name of the game. Like I had no idea at all like what I really needed to work on, and this is what my end goal was. And they kind of gave me okay, this is what you're trying to do. You're trying to score the most points by doing X, Y, Z, and da da da. As I played through the game, it made sense as stuff was going on. But it was so funny because even while playing it, first time playing it, I did some moves that I ended up blocking off one of the players that knew how to play from getting to what he wanted to do. And he was like, crap, I didn't even think of that. And that was the thing about that game, that I played it. I got my butt handed to me, but I had so much fun with it. And I'm like, man, this is a game that I want to play it again. And it's such a great little game, I'm telling you. But yeah, that's definitely like my word of advice for people that, if you want to get into it, definitely friendly local game store. That's where you want to go. They will get plenty of info and get you down the right path.